Hi everyone, it's Michaela. I thought since I looked pretty decent today that I would come on and I'd make a video about basically my riding story and like all the horses I've owned, because I've owned quite a bit of horses over the years. Not all were technically mine, but like they were my parents, or my parents bought them for me, or I bought them and resold them, or whatever. So this would be basically all the horses that have been on my farm and that I have been in contact with. So, kindergarten pretty much started it all. I'd been seeing my cousins ride around on what horses they owned and everything like that. So, my parents bought a pony, and I came home from school one day and my dad had a saddle sitting on the four-wheeler. And I said, "Hey, what are we going to do?" And he says, "We're going to go ride a goat." And so we went over to the barn on the four-wheeler, and he had a little black pony, or it was either like a Seal Bay or a black pony. He probably wasn't but like 10, 11 hands high. He was cute as a button, and his name was Pepsi. Get it? Because he was like the color of Pepsi. I don't really remember much of him. I have a couple pictures, I think, of me riding him, but I'm not sure. The next one, his name was Jasper. He was the sweetest little thing. He was mean. I don't remember how old I was when we had him the first time, but he was a little Hackney pony. He was bay with, I believe, one of his socks, if not two. I think at least one of his front hoofs was white, and I believe one of his back hoofs was. So I think it was the left front and the right rear, but I can't remember. Anyways, my mom would ride him because he was pretty big. He was like 12 and a half to 13 hands. Like, he wasn't that small of a pony, but he'd run you into the trees. Like, if you were riding him and you weren't in the middle of the road, going down the road, he'd just run you into a tree, trying to get you off. So that's a pony. The next was Leroy, and I really don't remember much other than my mom repeatedly telling me the story about how she was backing him up to we have a cement area in the backyard where it's like the house foundation basically, but we weren't done fixing it yet. And so we would climb up on it and I'd get on the horse with my mom to double. Well, she said, "Okay." And I thought she meant like, "Okay, get on the horse." And so I leaped up on there, and like he just goes, you know, like one of those really safe, dead broke horses anybody could ride. That's what he was. He just couldn't tie. He was a chestnut. He was probably about 15 hands high. Maybe I'm guesstimating because I was so little, but I think he was about 15 hands high. But you could not tie him at all. His ears, they had ringworm in them, and so you're supposed to clean them, but where he was so tall, and you couldn't tie him, they had a hard time, my parents had a hard time cleaning out his ears. And I was a little child, I was probably like first or second grade, and so there's no way I could personally do it. Next, I think we owned Leroy and Jack at the same time. Jack was a BLM, whichever way it's said, Mustang that we did not know he was a Mustang when we bought him. He was gray. Oh, he was so beautiful. He wasn't as broke as we needed at the time because we were really inexperienced with horses. He liked to rear and he liked to buck. He wasn't the best, and so my dad ended up reselling him because he wasn't well suited for our family. After Jack, we pretty much just sold out of horses, and we didn't have any for a while, and I'm so sorry I keep moving. I'm not sitting down, I'm standing up so the camera, so I apologize for that. But anyways, this was all when I was little, and so about 6th grade was when I really started wanting to get back into horses. My uncle had a mare, a standard-bred mare that was out of Amish country. She was older. She was an older mare, and he wanted a white or a gray mule colt out of her. And well, she didn't. She threw a a bay mule. And apparently either he got in between the mare and her mule colt before she could have smelled it or something, or maybe there was something wrong with the colt, or I don't know. Either way, she rejected it and did not want it, and she kicked it in the head and had nothing to do with it. So he wanted her gone, and my cousin bought her for not much and ended up giving her to me and my sister and my brother for Christmas, but it was September. So I got her for Christmas, and I love that little mare to death. She was so sweet. She was like a Silbay, or I don't even know what she was, but she was pretty. She wasn't that tall. She was probably about 14'3", 14'2", a really nice height. She seemed to be a pretty easy keeper until she got worms from another horse that we bought. She got worms and got really, really sick and really, really malnourished looking, and so we weren't that educated. And we didn't know much, and we didn't have any resources like people should have. And so the mare got extremely skinny, and we ended up giving her back to my cousin, and he gave her to a vet that we know of. And I'm not for sure, but that's what I was told, and that's what I believed. And as like a little 7th grader or 6th grader, I don't remember how long we kept her. We probably kept her until I was in 7th grade, maybe the winter of 6th grade, something. So the horse that gave her worms, his name is Rebel. He is a chestnut. He is the one we still have today. He's my sister's horse. And he came from Amish country as well. They bought him at an Amish auction, and they rode him over here on a trail ride. My cousins did. When we had the flu. Me and my mom and my sister had the flu. And they made us come outside and ride the horse around up and down the road to see whether we liked him or not. And of course, my mom and my sister fell in love with him. And he was a lot more skittish than he was. He was a little too much for us at the time. But they learned to like him, and they grew with him. He was about 6 or 7 at the time. And so we bought him, I believe, in 2012. The winter of 2012 winter of 2012. So we still had Dolly at this time. Dolly was the bay mare. And so the next horse we got was Dixie. She came into an auction at our local like horse sale or livestock auction, and she came in too late to get a Coggins pulled. So a man asked my dad if he would trailer us home, since he was already trailering my uncle's pony that he bought home. So we trailered this mare home for a neighbor or friend of ours, and she had cockleberries all in her mane and her tail, and it was awful looking, and she was kind of ribby, and it was April. It was actually 2 days after my birthday. So it was 2 days after my birthday. It was like April the 7th. Or maybe, no, the sale was on a Friday night. And so it was April the 5th. It was on my birthday. And so the man took her home and cleaned her up. He said he sat down behind her for 3 hours with baby oil, like on a stool, and she was standing up. And he got all the cockleburrs out of her tail and cleaned her up. And she was pretty as a picture when we came over Sunday, and he had me ride her, and I ended up spending all my birthday money on her, and my parents paid whatever was left over, and I got a horse for my birthday. And then and that's when we ended up giving Dolly away, was the next day, because I got a new horse. Because they didn't want me to be without a horse when my sister had one. Next was Jasper. We bought Jasper again, the little pony. or maybe he was given to me. I can't remember. But I rode him around, and I was obviously way too big for him. But I learned how to trim a horse's feet on him because he did really good, except for kicking me in the knee, which I still have problems out of. But my brother learned how to ride on him in the round pen, as well as riding Dixie, because Dixie was really broke, and I just went everywhere on her. Next was Onyx. I believe I sold Jasper in order to buy Onyx because I wanted a new horse to step up into and like get more experience with. And so I bought Onyx from my neighbor who lives like a mile down the road from me. And I looked at him, and he hadn't been rode in 5 years, hadn't been out of the pasture, hadn't had feet trimmed, nothing. And his feet were solid as rocks, and they looked good other than being like a little bit, they were like this much too long. So I was like, all right, I'll take him. And so I rode him home, which is stupid. I should have got him on a trailer and hauled him home, even though it was only a mile down the road, because he knew how to get from my house to his old house. And so I was trying to do groundwork and bond with my horse, my new horse. And I did that, and then he ran away from me and ran all the way back to my cousin's house down the road. So, and then I rode Onyx, and he's the horse that really got me starting into going places and camping and competing in A-Track and everything. So he was really my start in getting into being a better horseman. I rode him many miles. I've got over 250 miles in just competitions on that horse. He's worth his weight in gold, honestly. Like, he was perfect sometimes. So next I found a horse through a lady at church for $100. She was a quarter horse Arabian cross. Her name was Shasta because she'd drink a can of pop. She was a pretty little bay. She wasn't completely broke to ride, and I thought I was ready to start training my own horses and breaking them myself. And so I was told she was 4 or 5. Her teeth looked like they were. So I brought her home, and I thought she was a little wormy. And so I had my neighbor come look at her, which is the lady who got me into NATRC and AERC and helped me really become who I am today. And so I had her come look, and she's like, oh, she looks bred. And I was like, no. Sure enough, she was. And so a month later, it was Labor Day weekend. She cut her face open all over a T-post. And so we drove her to the vet, had that stitched up on Labor Day weekend, brought her back home. And at this time, she was like really pregnant. And I had been staying in the barn every night for like 3 weeks. And so it was like Monday or something. It was it was May the 25th of 2015. And I go over to the barn at 4 a.m. for a barn check because I didn't want to stay the night over there that night because I was exhausted from doing it. And there was a cute little mule colt, or mule filly, whatever, a mule foal in the barn. And it was a little girl. Oh, she was so precious. So obviously a month of just being with us and being on good quality hay and not being on fescue the other 10 months of her pregnancy was not good. And so we tried and we tried, and the mule, she looked really good, and I thought she was doing good, and I'd never raised a colt before. So I went to school. I think we didn't have school that Tuesday, and then we had school Wednesday, and so Wednesday she got sick, and my parents rushed her to the vet and got IVs and everything done, but there really wasn't anything they could do, and she died 48 hours later. The foal did. So the mare went on, and I decided not to breed her back because I really did not know what I was doing, and I didn't financially could afford another foal anytime soon. So I ended up just breaking her out to ride, but I didn't get her completely finished. She was pretty green when I sold her. I sold her to a man who knew who her parents was and knew where she came from, and told me, no, she's not 4 or 5. She's 11, no matter what her teeth says, because I know who her daddy was, and her daddy's been dead 9 or 10 years. So the mare I thought was 4 or 5 was actually 11. Anyways, I sold her, and with the money I sold her with, I bought another mare named Huckleberry, who was a walking horse. She was about 6, I think 6. I got her from a really nice fella who got her out of a bad situation where she was just ribby and skinny and bones, and so she was pretty skinny when I got her. And I just took her on, and I worked her from about November. I got her in November, and I rode her until May. And I learned how to put shoes on a horse, like I could nail the shoes in myself. And I learned how to do that on her. And then she got really fat and was just full of herself, and I didn't know what I was doing, and I was like, you know what, I'm tired of this. I'm gonna trade her off. So I took her up to West Virginia. I called my cousin, and I said, I want to get another horse. I want this one gone. Like, I'm tired of this one. Let's go get another horse. And so we took her up to West Virginia to a trading buddies of mine, and I said, what can I trade her for? So I tried out 10 or 12 horses. The one I looked at first, and I went in the barn, my cousin said, no, you don't want that one. There was a little strawberry rolling gelding. And he said, no, you don't want that one. That's a quarter horse. So I was like, okay, whatever. We're up here for a standardbred or some speed rack and something. And so I tried out like 8 or 9 horses. And I asked the man at the property, I said, what's that strawberry roll? And there is a quarter horse. And he said, no, it's a rack and fool. And so I was like, all right. And so we put a bridle on him. What we did when we got in there, he would hand you a bridle, and they all had the same bridle. And so you'd walk in the stall, you'd put the bridle on, and then you'd walk him over for him to hold, and you'd tack him up if you had a saddle. And so it was pretty funny. It was pretty comical. And so, and then you'd like run him up and down the gravel driveway. And so I tacked him up, and he stood really good. He was a little antsy, but I mean, it didn't matter. My cousin hopped on him first because I was younger and I didn't know, and I didn't want no outlaw, and I didn't want to die. So I let my cousin, who was more experienced, ride him and try him out first. And so he tried him out, and I was like, ooh, look at him go. And so I climbed up on him, and I knew that was the one I was taking home. I tried out 1 or 2 more horses, but nah. So I took home Denver. He is a 14-1, 14-2 strawberry roan racking gelding. I've had him since Labor Day in 2016. He's the one in all these pictures back here. He's the horse. He's my heart horse, honestly. Like, he'll probably be here until he dies. And I don't ever say that about any horses because I like trading horses. I like getting new horses. I like selling them. But I've been offered $7,000 for him, and I turned it down. And I guess I have to keep turning it down because he's that good of a horse. He's the horse that in 2017 I rode and placed as the second in the nation for NATRC Junior Open, which I'm extremely proud over. I'm extremely proud of that horse. He's done 150 AARC ride, 130 AARC ride. He's done a bunch of NATRC rides. That's what he placed second nationally in. I still have him today. He is 12 now, I think. Anyways, the next horse I bought was Fancy. She was like 10 months old, maybe. I think I bought her the same month I bought Denver. She was like 10 or 12 months old. She was 11 months old because her birthday's in June. I bought her as a yearling. My first ever one that I trained from the ground up. I've had her till November of 2018. I broke her to ride myself. I did all the groundwork myself. No one's ever trimmed her feet but me and my cousin who put shoes on her that one time. She went on 2 camping trips. She's been on trail rides. She's done it all. She just turned out to be an amazing little mare. But she was only 3 when I sold her, and I mean, she did really good. I broke her at 2.5, and she never bucked, she never reared, nothing. And I kept waiting for her to do something, and she never did. So, the next one I got was my mule. I had been wanting a mule since the foal died. So I had a friend in NATRC that I met when I was riding Onyx, and he had a mule of his own, and his niece had bred a mule. And he just was too much for her, and they ended up giving the mule basically to him, and he did not want him. He did not get along with him. He did not click with him. And so I was like, Daddy, let me have it. Because he was giving him to me just as a gift. And so he was like, fine. And so November, it was the week before Thanksgiving, he brought Nephew to me, which is the mule I still have today, which I don't know whether I'm going to keep him or not, but I still have him in the barn now. And Nephew will turn 4 in May. So Nephew is 5 days older than the mule foal that I had born that died. So she'd be the same age he is right now. He's done not as much as I ever got my Fancy mare to do, because he's a mule and he thinks different, and I have to figure him out, and that's just me working on him. Who else did I buy? So in January of 2018, Zeb, my mom's bay standardbred, we bought him from my cousin, and she's been riding him for about a year now. And she's really liking him. We bought him so we could sell Onyx, because Onyx was getting trippier and stumbling and stuff, and he really wasn't getting rode other than when somebody who's never rode before came to the house. And so we needed to move him on. And so we bought Zeb to replace him. And so Onyx sold June of 2018, but we delivered him for the buyers, and so we didn't deliver him until July. And so before we delivered Onyx, my cousin calls me because he has a foal die, and he said, come get this mare, I don't want her anymore. And so I bought her. And that is Itch, my little trotting bred standardbred mare that I love to death. I don't know whether she'll go anywhere either. I'm getting pretty attached to her. I've had her since July, and she drives a car, and she rides on trail, and she gates. She'll gate up to like 20 miles an hour, and then she'll swap over to a flying pace. She's perfect. I love her to death. I sold when I sold Onyx, I delivered him to Tennessee. In Tennessee, I picked up another gelding in order to resell, which I did in October or November. And that was Blackjack. I will insert a picture. I never rode him. All I did was work on his feet because they were awfully overgrown. And I ground drove him some because I was thinking about starting him on pulling a cart because he was a great build for that. And I did not want to ride him because I could not get him sound. And so I thought, I had the vet look at him, and the vet couldn't figure out anything either. So I ended up selling him to a buddy of mine. Made money either way, doesn't matter. Next, I sold Fancy in November of 2018 to a very nice lady in Alabama. She is she's sold to a lady who is in NATRC, and so hopefully one day I will see her competing against me, and that would be a really nice dream of mine to come true, to see that little mare compete. She ended up changing her name to Blondie, which is fine. She doesn't look like a blondie, though. So with the money from Fancy, I went and bought my horse trailer, which has nothing to do with my riding story, but I thought I'd put that plug in there, because if you want a trailer info video, I can do that. Right now, my current horses that I have right now are Zeb, Rebel, Denver, Itch, and Nephew. So we only have 5 right now. We had 7 or 8 over the summer, and that was way too many, and we needed some gone because it was a lot of work. So that's basically my ride story. I'll insert all the pictures when I'm editing, and I hope you enjoyed. I just dropped my drink. Did you hear all the ice? Bye, y'all. Hope you enjoyed.